Let's go ahead and hit the record button because it's Friday, and Friday means it's the last edition of Bid Nerds of the Week. Hello, everybody. My name is John Polnick. I'm your host of Bid Nerds, coming to you live from a very cloudy and actually drizzly Las Vegas Strip.
What?
It is amazing. We're actually seeing clouds out there. Right next to me is Michael Deeb, coming to you live from also foggy San Francisco, where you would expect it to be a little drizzly and gray.
Yeah.
How are you, my friend? Good morning.
Awesome, man. So the guy from Washington has Seattle on the Strip. Is that what your apartment is today?
Very much like home out there, looking at
Yeah.
the roads. I'm going, hey, what a perfect time to go drive a convertible Porsche.
Absolutely.
Because that's what you do in between the clouds in Seattle.
I tell you, man, when it gets a little bit wet in Vegas, you go to an empty parking lot and learn how to drift.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah. Excellent point. Yeah, it's like snail snot everywhere. It's just all the oil that hasn't been washed away just comes up and just makes this goopy.
It's amazing.
It's a mess
you can
out there.
find the limits of your car. Where is the polar movement of my rear engine vehicle?
Well, and the great thing about Las Vegas is that when you do get an accident, it's very easy to find an accident lawyer for anyone who's ever been here. Every 45 feet is a billboard with a personal injury lawyer. And the thing is, they all try to differentiate themselves by like our good friend Steve Demopoulos. He's like,
hey,
injury elite, and he's like, are you like a model or something? What is this? What is this? And then the other guy looks like a DJ. His hair's above the thing, and then the other guy looks like the muscle. It's just hilarious.
He's Pierce Sullivan's spirit animal because he's always brooding with his pouty lips.
Yeah.
But Steve Demopoulos isn't a lawyer. He's a magician because he makes moving violations
disappear. It's true.
I love that guy.
Everyone actually calls him all his billboards look like an advertisement for the next greatest teen vampire movie, and then you got Knockv, who looks like, is that an injury lawyer? Or is that a nightclub DJ? You're just not sure.
Yeah.
And they really do. I mean, you could just like swap out whatever profession they are, and you could just put in some other genre, and they would totally fit.
Every portrait of Knockv in Las Vegas, he could have headphones on or around his neck, and he'd look just as good.
It's true. It's true.
He's way too young to be the best at everything.
If you guys know who we're talking about too, his billboards, he has such high hipster hair that they add that to the top of the billboard so his hair sticks out above the upper level.
Yeah,
it's
totally
hilarious.
It's amazing.
And then there's the buff guy who stands in front of his motorcycle. It's like, oh, if you're a boomer and you get an accident, call me because I have a Harley.
Battleborn.
Oh my God, it's off the charts. All right, so
we'll
we'll have to do a new podcast about personal injury lawyers in Las Vegas.
Oh my God, that'll be a long one.
All right, well, guys, everyone, thanks for joining us. If this is your first time, this is your get used to it. This is your daily nerd out on the most interesting cars of the day on Cars and Bids and Bring a Trailer and all the other popular automotive enthusiast auction websites. Some of them not so popular, but whatever. We talk about them anyway.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, guys. I mean, the thing is, we have 14 followers, so I don't know why. I mean, why would anybody give a? Yeah. Anyways,
why would anybody start a burner account?
Yeah. It's so hilarious. Oh, I'm not going to listen to you guys anymore. You just started your account yesterday. The same day you're making the account. We can tell. It's right there. It's like some boomer in a used car sales office is like going, how does computer work? Somebody get that monkey. And it's like, oh my God. And they run an online auction site. Hilarious.
That's awesome.
Hilarious.
I love it.
Yeah. And they're worried about, so folks, if you're trying to figure it out, you're going to have to read between some lines. We're not going to spell it out for you exactly, but one of the not so popular online automotive auction sites that does their own market preview videos kind of regularly, and they get like a few thousand views, and we get like 14 or 32 or whatever, and
9 of them are blood relatives.
Or maybe our dog sat on the keyboard and hit a like button or something like that. Nobody listens to us, but these guys' panties are in such a bunch that they decided to create a dummy burner account on YouTube, and then to critique us and say how big shots they were and how dialed in, or was it? Oh, I'm sorry, plugged in. That sounds more boomer. How plugged into the community is and how big their collection is. Like, Who are you trying to convince? Dude, there's nobody in the room. It's just like four of us. Who are you talking to exactly? You're going to leave with all your friends and never come back? Who's that? You would have to take my wife with you. We're the only people that watch this show.
He's the only guy in the room, and yet he still wore a hat, an overcoat, and the glasses with a mustache so he could be anonymous. I'm like, we see you.
It's so true.
We're just flattered that they watch and that they've become third nerds. We welcome them to the party. Thank you.
All nerds welcome, and we make it very, very clear that we do not know what we're talking about. We don't do any research. We just know what we know, and maybe that makes us idiots. And well, I mean, maybe nothing. We are total idiots. I mean, and nobody watches our show, so it's awesome. That's what makes us great. You could watch one of the other shows. That what do we say? It's kind of like watching the futures, the farm futures in Topeka, Kansas, or something like that. If you want to watch charts or hear, or it'd be like hanging out in the used car manager sales office in one of those car lots in Reseda that just has like a double wide as a car lot. It's like four boomers sitting around a room.
Yeah. Only closers get coffee.
Yeah, right. ABC, always be closing.
That's right. Yeah, they won't come in. Well, then take your
Jerry,
to the lot.
What are the 5 principal points of sale? I need to know right now because it doesn't seem like you're performing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyways. All right. Enough making fun of those guys. And the great thing is they, by having all 5 guys in their office watching us right now, you guys have literally doubled our audience. So thank you.
Yes.
And we know they're running around their fancy office going, it's so great.
These guys.
So what we do on this show is we do make predictions as to what we think the cars will actually sell for when the cars actually hit the auction block. So we nerd out about them a little bit. We talk about our personal experiences, but we also do kind of get into that nitty gritty, and we keep track. We keep track of all our numbers, and we've got a little bit of a competition going between Michael Deeb and I, but percentage-wise, we're actually generally pretty close. Sometimes we get some that are pretty off.
Not this week, dude.
But this week,
you've won every single day, and you crushed on Tuesday. And so, anyway, when you're ready, we'll jump into yesterday.
Yeah, let's talk about yesterday's cars. Then we'll get to today's. Man. We've got some really cool cars today. Today we have that one that Aston Martin 6-speed, the Volante, the DB9.
Is that our star car?
That's our big car of the day. So we'll be talking about that. But first, let's get to yesterday's predictions and see how we did, and then actually, that's something that I haven't seen any of the other market preview guys do, is go back and talk about their previous predictions.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see their formats change now. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about yesterday's cars real quickly, and then we'll get to today's. What was the car? What do we want to begin with from yesterday?
The Scirocco was the star car yesterday. Yeah, how could you forget? Your high school crush. I know. Your high school crush showed up. She looked like this one that you fell in love with.
She did not age well, okay? Yeah, she has 3 kids. She's been married 4 times, and works at the 7-Eleven.
She looks like she's been strung out on meth. And this one was unfortunately in sad shape. On Cars and Bids yesterday, we saw an 88 16 valve with several 100,000 miles on it, a terrible Earl Shrive 99.99 paint job over what is a deplorable interior. And, just based on the cosmetic neglect, you would suggest that the mechanicals could be a mess. Now, I must say there were a few cool pieces. It's got BBS wheels and some Coney shocks. But man, somehow, even at the price that this car was just bid to, you wouldn't buy it there and then expect to spend money on it, bringing it back. It was really far gone, JP. I don't think this is one that could be saved. This would be better car to, strip for parts, really. Which is a shame, but it's the way it goes. I still thought this car might bring 6,500 because red and Scirocco 16 valve. I mean, my God, it is still eye-catching, even though it's kind of an ugly condition car. You were $100 away from a Yahtzee yesterday. 5,700 was your bid. The car was bid to 5,800 on Cars and Bids. And that, JP, listen, we say this all the time, that sometimes a car could bring a little bit more money on Bring a Trailer, but this one, I mean, you really could see the forest for the trees with this one. The photos were honest enough. I don't know that it would have done much better, and it's just weird that at $5,800, this car didn't hit a reserve, and of course it didn't sell. how unrealistic is this kid thinking he's going to get? What's he expecting? 6,500, $7,000? It's not going to happen.
I mean, that's the thing. There's the Radwood fervor. Everyone's really excited about 80s and 90s cars, and they think that, oh, well, okay, this other really nice one over here went for a gajillion, so that means my POS is going to, all, the rising tide raises all ships, and it doesn't necessarily work that way. If your car's a POS, your car's a POS, and it doesn't matter what it. Sometimes, and unfortunately, the Scirocco's have not gone up that much to make it worthwhile to completely restore this car. So, we'll see what happens to this car in the future.
I still wish you bought that Callaway we saw a couple months ago. That was a cool car. But this one, JP, here's my thought, though. This kid puts a car on an auction site to a national audience rather than regionally selling it, let's say, on Craigslist or at his local Cars and Coffee. Yeah. At his local Cars and Coffee or on Craigslist, somebody's going to drive to his house or drive to the coffee shop and look at this car in person, and he's never going to get the money for it. So his one shot at selling this car to somebody who would buy it, essentially sight unseen, was here on the auction site, and he set his reserve unrealistically high. Anyway, again, at $5,800, this car did not meet reserve. It remains available. JP, you won that one, and that was our star car of the day.
I do believe I said I didn't think it would get another bid, so I was wrong about that. It got like one more bid.
One bid. Yeah, it got one bid for $100, and it stalled out. And that bid was after the show. It wasn't at the close of auction. So at the close of auction, the count went all the way down, and it was done.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay.
I watched it close. Okay, my favorite car from yesterday was the 86 Alfa Romeo GTV6 that was on Bring a Trailer. This car was out of Palm Springs. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're not familiar with Alfa Romeo, they have had a very rough go of it in the United States. They pulled out of the market in 94 and came back, I don't know, a couple of years ago. But these were cool cars in period, but they just depreciated rapidly. And as JP has said about other models like Scirocco's, these cars were never owned after the first owner. Most of the regular owners were people that just really couldn't afford to keep them up. A lot of these cars were parked outside, and that alone did them in. This one looks like it has been lovingly cared for its entire life. With something like 40 or 50,000 original miles in this unusual light sort of champagne gold, this car is in spectacular original condition. Now, the top of the market for a GTV6 is still just under $40,000. But there wasn't any bids overnight or in the morning when we did the show. And so I cooled off on my bid. I said 32. You took a very safe and conservative tack and said $30,000. The reserve was met at $32,500, but this car was bid all the way up to $37,000 and sold. And the point I was trying to make yesterday is how interesting that this, in a lot of ways, inferior engineered GTV6 is going to sell for arguably $10,000 to $15,000 more than our 87 944S that we're going to cover today, which has less miles and is in equally really nice condition. It's just hard for me to believe that an Alfa could bring more than a Porsche. So anyways, this will be interesting to compare. So there you go, $37,000.
I just wanted to take another opportunity to show the spectacular driving video. I mean, look, here's the thing about these auction sites, whatever platform you got. I don't care if it's PCAR or BAT or Cars and Bids or the new Rad. The one that's the most romantic wins. Okay, looking at this video, that's the only place in the world I want to be right now, is in the cockpit of that car. Yep. That's it. Romanticism is where it's at. Your charts, your figures, your market research, your how much horsepower, blah 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 blah. All the different things that car sales pukes use to determine the values of the car really gets thrown out the window when you look at something like this video and you just see, oh, this is why I'm a car enthusiast, right?
Yeah.
It's that right there. That video just is every reason why we love these things. And, this video isn't going to show you, with the 2 minutes after the video when the oil pump fails and the guy has to pull over and wait 4 hours for AAA to come and get him. But that's the point, is that this is the romanticism. This is why we love cars.
JP, you are harsh sometimes on some of the videos, but the videos are mostly poor quality. Yeah. And I was ready to say on the show, stop making POV videos. Like, prop up the camera on the passenger side or on the dashboard or in the window over the shoulder, but stop attaching it to your person and showing the video. And I'm not saying that this is, because this one's very still. It might just be on the window next to the driver's head. But when we see this video and you talk about the romanticism, mission accomplished. I mean, this guy nails it. He did hit it out of the park. Great road, great car, and very decent footage that probably by all means came from a damn iPhone. Way to go.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. If you don't know what you're doing, trying is the whole try, do your best thing. No, you know what? Your best isn't good enough probably if you don't know what you're doing. And that's just the case. There's a Hippocratic oath in the medical field that says first do no harm, right? And we see this all the time, especially like with car dealers, like professional car dealers. How often have you seen some car salesman walking around a car for some ad, right? And you're like, okay, I was going to consider this car. I was going to consider going to this dealership and maybe buying a car, but thank you, car dealership X, for giving me the relevant information that I needed to know that I am not coming to your dealership because I don't want to talk to that guy. That guy, I'm looking at an $80,000 sports car to enhance my life. I don't need that person in my life at all. I'll find some other $80,000 car. You can make it worse if you do it wrong. So just don't do it at all unless you have some clue. Or watch one of our videos that tells you how to do it. So there it is.
First, do no harm. That's a great tag. Yeah, I don't know that I'm familiar with that. That's awesome stuff. Good intel.
It's the Hippocratic Oath. Don't you ever watch ER?
No, God no. I only watch
in the '80s. Bid Nerds. It's the only thing on your screen.
Get those nerds. Okay,
nerds.
37,000. That's got to be a high watermark, certainly for the last couple of years. If one traded hands for more than that, it was probably private. But congratulations to the seller, and absolutely congratulations to the buyer. You probably have the nicest GTV6 in existence in the United States, or at least one of. So that's awesome result, and I'm happy to see an Alpha bring that kind of money.
A couple of very jealous bid nerds over here.
Oh, for sure, yeah. We did also look at this 2008 Porsche Cayman S. I was hoping that this generation of the Cayman was immune to the IMS bearing, but my partner, who obviously doesn't do any research, said it's not. And so with just, I think, 5,000 or 8,000 original miles, it is still one of those moments where you have to say, buyer beware. This car could still be in for some of its early in its life teething problems. So if you get a car like that, we would strongly urge you to consider either a warranty or sucking up to a really good independent Porsche repair facility near you, because you might just have a few little things that need to be taken care of, as this car is still essentially, the French call it rodage, where you're breaking in the motor and the drivetrain. That being said, a manual Cayman S, especially one in this colorway, and JP and I are both fans of those 19-inch Carrera Classic wheels. This is a really fun car, great entry-level Porsche. It could be a great sport car that you could autocross or do driving events. This would be an excellent car for that. You could also just daily it.
Here's the thing. Patootie, and she's an expert. Of the three of us, this is the one that's the most expert because she has Gulf livery bows on her hair. So that clearly means that she's an expert. This car is definitely approved by Patootie. She loves it.
Mm-hmm. Some in our audience would say she's the smartest of the three because she doesn't speak. We'll beat you to the tagline. Yeah. Anyway, I said 38. JP went over, which I was shocked. Every time JP bets over me, I was like, uh-oh, what did I leave on the table? Well, he was right. This car sold for $42,307. JP's second win of the day. Well done. Congratulations to the seller. You got all the money. A dealer would struggle to find 42 for that car, and I mean it. That's the reason. That's, again, these platform things. There is this fervor for low mileage cars, and there are a lot of people that are on these platforms that just don't pay attention to a lot of the things that are more important than just miles and specs. If you're a miles, specs, horsepower, charts, research person, that's how you lose, because you buy this car, you spend top dollar on it, you're driving it home, and the engine and you lose. JP, hear me out on this, right? So $42,000 for the car, $2,500 to BAT, so you're in it now. 45, $2,000 to get it home is 47. The IMS bearing is 40. It's 50, brings you up to 50, and you owe the tax, which is another $4,000. Tax and tags, there's another $4,000. So somebody's in this car $54,000 before they take it to redline. I mean, that's $54,000 for a Cayman S. That doesn't pencil. No way.
Yeah, and it could still bore score. So, anyways, let's move on. What do we got next?
We jumped back over to cars and bids and looked at a 1992 Range Rover Country SE. Now, this looked like the short wheelbase version. This is still a high mileage vehicle. It was offered on Boston, Mass. And I don't know, we're feeling these old SUVs. There's a renaissance with like the older British ones, and certainly there's a movement with the early European ones that are being turned into sort of overland vehicles or rally raid style with the knobby tires that you and I are both fans of. So this will be a fun one to look at. High miles, but no stories. And just a cool car, no nonsense. And it's on Cars and Bids, and it's in the East Coast in February. I thought 18. You more conservatively said 16, and this car sold for $15,250. Well done to the buyer. I think you kind of picked it up for a song. There you go. I mean, it's a high maintenance vehicle, but it could be at times high reward. It will frustrate you, this car, but at the times that you're enjoying it, it's pretty bitchin'. We love it. So been approved.
This is definitely another romantic vehicle.
Yeah,
that
totally.
Is wonderful when it works, not so much when it doesn't, but who cares? It's probably not your only car. Nobody's buying this as their only car. If you are, whoops.
Totally.
You know.
Yeah. Get AAA, as JP says. Do not leave home without it.
Yeah. Or a classic car insurance policy that will tow your car as many times as you need to.
Yeah. That's second time we shamelessly plugged Haggerty, and we're not getting paid yet.
Well, I said classic car insurance. You said Haggerty. So,
Are
you're right.
Are the two terms not synonymous?
There are other classic car insurance companies out there that I'm sure might be.
Not if you work for Haggerty.
That's true, and we don't. So we don't work for. Well, I mean, actually, I guess it's true. Here it is, guys. We're gonna finally make the big reveal. We work for BAT.
Yeah, I'm in the Bay Area.
We've never talked to them. They haven't sent us any paychecks. They don't know our names, and they've never heard of us. But sure, we work for them. Why not?
They rejected your cars. What are you talking about?
I know, right? Well, I do have a car. This is the first time that they actually let my car on VAT.
What are you, we'll 1 for 3 with them? All right, last car of the day.
We don't work for BAT, for the record.
This is a 69 Ford Bronco Sport that was on Bring a Trailer. Now, this is interesting, JP. Our K5 Blazer, when me, you, and Paul Kramer from the Auto Kennel bid on that car, we were all too high on the actual hammer price for. And same thing happened to us here. This is a beautiful car with a 351 Windsor manual transmission. Period style upgrades. I think this car was refurbished in the modern day, but it looks like all the cool accoutrement you could have done to your Bronco back in period in like the early 1970s. You and I were fawning over the colorway. This sort of almost apple red with cream accents really helps the red and doesn't let the red drown the rest of the car out. The wheels and the top and all the stuff. The interior is nice, and that motor with headers on it, if you could see from the photos, that motor in the video at idle sounds like a lumpy freaking muscle car. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, man, this thing was really cool. So I went high and said 51, and you bet the over at 54. Lucky to the buyer, this car sold for $45,000 for my second win of the day. So I don't know, pretty well sold, but definitely really well bought. Congratulations to the new owner. I think you have probably the best looking Bronco I've seen. I mean, it's really cool.
Yeah, agreed. So much better than the Resto Mod bedazzled kind of gas monkey garage style crap.
These millionaires spending a couple $100,000 on icons, you couldn't give me one. I just, it's not for me. And we know Gary bought one and he loves it, but it's just, there's no romanticism in the car. It looks like Terminator, it's just weird. I don't get it. So.
All right. Well, hey, there it is. That's the cars of yesterday. So those are the bids and predictions that we made, and we were pretty darn close. Some were a little off, but let's get to today's cars and let our review of yesterday's predictions remind you that you should not listen to us or make any buying decisions based on what we say. In fact, you shouldn't even be watching us because we're dumb. But since you are, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button and share this and let all your friends know that we exist. We love you guys. And hey, you know what?
And
cars. Go ahead.
Please comment on YouTube. Love the banter. We
do. We have a great time with that. While you're at it, let everybody else know and let us know what cars you want us to review. Because the most interesting cars of the day on Cars and Bids and Bring a Trailer is not just up to us, it's up to you guys. Let us know, what cars do you want us to talk about? Let's do it. So we got a whole slew of cars coming next week, but we got cars today. Let's get to the cars today. I need a a stinger for the cars of the day. I'm gonna have to build that over the weekend.
We would have no things, we'd have no accoutrement that we would just go
it's happening.
live
it's
without
happen.
that. Yeah, I knew it. It was only a matter of a moment.
Yeah.
All right, so our star car, JP, is from England. It is an 2006 Aston Martin DB9 Volante 6-speed. JP, I don't know if you read this, but does that car look blue to you?
In these pictures, I guess if you stare at it, there is a little bit of a blue hue. It looks like the blue from Superman's hair. His hair is black, but if you look at the comic books, they always kind of give it a little bit of a blue kind of accent.
Fantastic analogy. This car is blue sapphire, what I would say is an authentic midnight blue metallic. This car is so dark in the sunlight, it doesn't even look blue. I bet it would look blue at the golden hour. Would be a great time to look at this car. So these photographs, in my humble opinion, are horrible. And JP, correct me if I'm wrong, but I just think they're terrible photographs. It's too bright out to shoot this dark a car. So anyways, 14,000 miles out of Naples, Florida. This has been a golf course car its entire life. It's interesting to me that I don't know, like, how does this car fit? As a Grand Tourer, it's too involved with a manual transmission. I almost feel like a manual on the convertible sort of holds this back. I mean, I suppose if you're young and wealthy and you want to row your own gears, this is a cool car to drive with a 5.9 liter V12 that's making, upwards of 500 horsepower or somewhere in that range. I don't know, see if I can find the actual data. 450 horsepower, 420 pound-foot of torque. It's probably a hoot to drive, but it's not light, it's not quick, and it's not nimble, but it is a stick. It probably sounds good, and it's probably rewarding to, drop the clutch and get into it, but it's still not the stick doesn't transform this platform into a driver's car for me. It is more involved than an automatic, but I honestly, if I own this car, I'd probably rather have an automatic and just have my arm around my girl, So I don't know, whatever.
Rubbish. Those are all things you could say about a Cayenne manual. I mean, they're not very fast.
Suppose.
You go through the gears and, they're heavy and they're lumbering and blah, blah, blah. And you're absolutely right. But you throw a manual into a car like this that does feel like it weighs 10 gajillion pounds. And it's going to feel, because it does, with the manual, it's going to feel like it only weighs 5 gajillion pounds, which is significant. I mean, this really, and the thing is, for the cruising, for the grand touring, you hit the freeway, you put it in a high gear, you're in overdrive, and you just cruise along. You're going to have effortless power, whether you're in third gear or sixth gear. It's not going to matter. You touch the throttle on this thing, it's going to take off.
It will take off. It's a fast car, man. At 100 miles an hour, this car will feel like it's doing 20.
Yeah.
They're neat. It does have a limited slip differential. Those are 19-inch wheels. It's got decent brakes, like legit brakes, and it's an interesting car. But man, JP, these were 150, 200 grand or more when they were new. I mean, these cars are so soft in the secondary market. This car is 15 years old, well out of warranty, and you'll have a hard time finding somebody that will want to back that drivetrain because it was built in the UK. But man, $36,000, you're picking this up for pennies on the dollar.
Well, I mean, it comes with dumpsters. Clearly, they're in the picture. So that's added value. I think it's interesting that a car like this just looks like it was treated like a Honda, Accord or something like that. Whoever owned this car just drove it. The paint looks like it's got the wear that you would expect on any, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of, a same year 500 SL that you would find in Florida. Some old guy had it on the golf course and drove it around, and he just watched it. He took it to the drive-through car wash. He put regular gas. It's just nothing special. He probably has a bunch of other really expensive stuff, and this is just the car he chose to drive. Which I kind of appreciate. I don't know if that's necessarily the car I want to buy, but I mean, if there's, to me, I would love to drive this car because I just wouldn't care so much about, you wouldn't treat it, it wouldn't be precious. It would just be, you could enjoy it just like whoever owns it now does. But like you said, a $200,000 car now, worth so much less. The car doesn't realize that it's only worth $50,000 now, and so the maintenance will not reflect its current value. The maintenance will always reflect its original value. So bear that in mind. Pay now or pay later. What is it that you think someone's going to pay now, today, for this car?
So JP, time for me to eat a little bit of crow. This car's at just $36,000, but it's got 24 bids on Bring a Trailer. So there is an audience for this thing. Also, I should point out the name of this interior is Arctic Blue. It's actually, it's like, I'm going to go full Porsche on you. It's like polar silver leather. I mean, it's really, some of the photos you can actually see there's kind of a light blue, almost a putty blue kind of color to the leather, which is really unusual. I'll just say that. I don't want to bash, but anyway, here we go. So with 4 hours to go out of Naples, Florida, the Country Club Cruiser, if ever there was one, I wrote $47,000 last night, but I'm not feeling this car. So I'm going to take $2,000 off and say 45.
I'll take your bid. I'll take 47. I think it makes 50.
You're gonna go to over. Man. I hope it goes to 46.
This car, This car is so cool. I mean, talk about baller on a budget. This is the perfect Vegas car. I mean, if you're a DJ at one of the nightclubs and you just want to look baller, this is it. Ride around with a hoodie and some headphones and
totally. Two strippers in the passenger seat.
Exactly. But I mean, I think the car would bring more and would be more likely to make that kind of money, or maybe higher, if it weren't in Florida. I mean, Florida is just such a kiss of death for a car like this.
Or if it had better photos and video.
Yeah, all the above. All right, let's move on. Beautiful car. Would love to own it, but not exactly spectacular in its condition.
I would spend $47,000 differently than that. So we're going to jump over to Cars and Bids, and we're going to speak a little French. With a croissant, an espresso, and a salad niçoise, you can pull up in your 1988 Citroen Deux Chevaux, which I think I said that correctly. It's 2CV in English, but it's Deux Chevaux. Believe it or not, JP, the original design for this car was in the 30s. It predated the war, and the French have been pumping out this car from 1948 to 1990. Believe it or not, JP, and I did not know this, it has a horizontally opposed two-cylinder engine. So it's basically two pistons firing at each other like a couple of dishwashers in a fist fight out in the back alley.
Wow.
How's that for an analogy?
Well, there you go. Nice work.
The earliest version of this car
How late did you stay up trying to think of that one?
I did that this morning on the car.
Okay.
That
All right. Okay. Good. All right.
Yeah. The earliest versions of this car employed a 375cc air-cooled H2 that made 9 horsepower. But our car is the most powerful spec, and that means it's a 600cc that makes 29 horsepower, with just 27 pound-foot of torque.
Cool your jets, Turbo. Look at that.
Yeah, is that unbelievable? These cars are famous for tipping over, and their ragtops. They have made appearances in movies on every country that has ever had cinema. These cars are everywhere, and they throw them down the highway in major accidents and just all kinds of weird stuff. But again, this car, it really takes European production as everybody kind of recovered and came out of World War II. The biggest way to put countries back to work was heavy manufacturing. And so some of these countries really got into mass production of automobiles. Spain did not, but France did. And they built this car as an inexpensive, this was really sort of the Volkswagen Beetle, the people's car of France. I can't quite see what the total production numbers, 9,100,000. Wow. So they made almost 10 million Deux Chevaux, again, JP, between 48 and 90. This is an 88. Somebody imported it. It is on a domestic title.
1988, folks.
I know.
Not 68. This is a 1988. They were saving money by putting one single spoke on the steering wheel. They didn't want to put two because that would have cost another 48 something rubles, or I don't know, whatever. But front wheel drive. Franks, I don't know.
Yep, front wheel drive, 4-speed manual, 53,000 original miles out of Portland, Oregon, and on a U.S. title, a Citroen Deux Chevaux, which I have to say, JP, of all the cars that people run in the United States, you rarely ever see these. The only time I've ever seen these in person is when I traveled abroad. I mean, this is a really unusual car in the States. So there you go. What do you think? Any experience with these?
Not really. I'd love to see one at Cars and Cafe. It would be such a great car. I mean, look, we're rolling into, what is it, Valentine's Day weekend. And so I think that's why we're overusing the word romanticism today. But, I mean, can you think of a car that's more romantic than this? I mean, you got the French music, you got the, the wine and the cheese and the open top like that.
You could pull back the rag top, fill it up with water, and put a bouquet of flowers in it.
Right. I mean, it really is a flower vase. That's all it is.
Totally.
With some wheels. You're absolutely right. I don't know. I don't know what these are worth.
I don't either,
I would sure love to have one and drive it around Vegas. It would get so much attention. This would be a fun car in Turo.
Turo would be a fantastic idea. I bet you get this car to pay for itself because our car has had a ton of action on Doug DeMuro's side. I love that this car is on Cars and Bids because it is absolutely the type of car I think he should go after.
Yep.
35 bids, JP, and yet it's just sitting at $12,107. So they're not very expensive cars. I am absolutely shooting in the dark when I try to come up with a value for these because I don't know. And as I'm looking up my notes, I have $12,000 as my guess, and our car is already at $12,107. So I'm going to just up my bid and say $15,000 because of the action and leave it there. So 15,000, take it or leave it.
I mean, what a perfect place for it to be right now. I mean, it seems like they should just sell it locally because it's in Portland already, and Portland's motto is keep Portland weird. I don't know if you could find a weirder car for downtown Portland.
Austin called and they said, we're weird too, so bring it down here.
Yeah, I mean, really, this... okay, yeah, I'll go 16. I'm going to say it just rallies because we haven't seen anything like this. It's not a lot of money. I mean, great under guess. 15, I'm sitting here going, God, we should buy it and put it on Turo. Because what a great time. I mean, oh my God, that'd be fantastic for the strip.
Here's the thing. It's air cooled, so it doesn't have air conditioning, or if it does, we can almost guarantee it doesn't work.
Neither does a 356 Speedster, and people wanted to like that all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. But if it was your car, if you weren't touring it and you had to drive it, I mean, my goodness, it's probably better suited for a climate like Portland than it is like Austin or Vegas. That was only my point. Yeah. It doesn't mean you couldn't enjoy it, but it just,
I don't know.
Where you wouldn't drive it.
Yeah, well, but that's the same thing in Portland, or well, maybe not so much Austin. Austin really is a great place, but Portland is wet, and I bet this car does not say dry, and I bet it rusts horribly. Right, yeah. And we have 4 or 5 months in Vegas where it's too hot to drive stuff like this, but the rest of the year you could totally drive it, and it wouldn't rust away. I don't know. Whatever. Very interesting car. We gave our bids already, right? We're moving on. Let's do it.
We did, yeah. Okay, so we're going to jump back over to Bring a Trailer and look at a car that is near and dear to your heart. Because we never cover these. This is a 1984 Volkswagen Scirocco race car. This car
sorry,
has
I queued up the 944 kids.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
Am I going out of order?
No, we're all good.
Okay,
there we go.
So this car has somebody took this car a while ago and completely dedicated to racing, which means this car probably has no working headlights, ventilation system, no blinkers, definitely no smog equipment. The entire interior has been gutted in favor of safety equipment. And this car is probably built to some sort of spec in likely the SCCA to be a class racer, in which case this would be a blast to drive. I mean, JP, could you imagine how fun this would be to do a few laps in, or to figure out a way to kind of be a renegade and drive it on the street every once in a while? I imagine the exhaust has little to no baffling, and this would just be a hoot because they probably took a, correct me if I'm wrong here, JP, like a 26 or 2,800 pound Scirocco and probably took 800 pounds worth of carpet and sound deadening and useless ancillary equipment out of the car. And so now it's just you and machine on slick tires with a little bit of aero and a slick paint job. And look at all those stickers. I love it. I've always wanted to own like a completely dedicated race car. And this seems like it'd be an absolute blast of a platform to work with if you don't mind the front wheel drive. I'm sure as a racer, you find an aftermarket limited slip differential that'll help you get that power down to the ground without the steering wheel fighting you. This car remains normally aspirated, a 1.8 liter inline 4. So it's going to be a little short-winded as far as high horsepower. the footage that you're looking at is at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, which is a long and fast racetrack. And you'll notice that our driver is at the back of a long train of cars. This car would probably be better suited for the tracks in California, like Laguna Seca and Finia and Sears Point, where they're tight, more technical tracks, and the handling would come into play. But all in all, anytime we see a Scirocco, we have to give it some love. This is a no-reserve auction out of Mount Prospect, Illinois. True mileage unknown, but if you were looking for an inexpensive way to enter your local regional racing, you would do a lot worse than this arguably reliable and fun Scirocco race car, sitting at just $6,000, JP. Value for the money, huh?
Yeah, well, I hate this car. It's a Scirocco, belongs on the road, and that's the only place it belongs. If you're going to get a race car, an SCCA race car, like you said, it has to be rear-wheel drive. What is the dang point? I love rear-wheel drive cars. People, the professor will whoop my butt all over the Angeles Crest in his, Rabbit. I'm sorry, Golf GTI. Golf R, but we like to call it a Rabbit just to tick him off. But
Thunder Bunny,
his Thunder Bunny. Race cars on the track need to be rear-wheel drive. End of story. Period. I mean, there's just, especially if you're at this level. I mean, it's just like, why wouldn't you? Why would you waste your money and time on a Scirocco, on a front-wheel drive race car? That just seems so silly when there's so many other options that you could get for the same money that would get you proper race car handling. Sciroccos are so cool looking, and they are so cars and coffee worthy, and they are so top of the Volkswagen food chain. This Sciroccos, if they still run, belong on the street where people can see them, not covered with race car stripes getting banged into by XR4 Ti Mercurs or whatever the hell you're racing up against out there. I'm bashing on this thing a little bit. It probably
I love
is.
it.
You're right, though. It probably is absurdly fun to drive around the track.
When was the last time you went to a racetrack and saw a Volkswagen go by on track carrying the torch for our beloved little Volkswagen company that owns everything else we like,
I am loving this race footage, not because of the car, but because the car, whatever class he's in, you've got first gen RX-7s, you got an old 944 out there.
Absolutely. He's there. He's right there.
He's in it, yeah.
And this is a fast track. I'm telling you, JP, as a Forza and Gran Turismo guy, I know this track intimately, virtually, and it is for a Scirocco to even be in this race is amazing. I mean,
isn't this where they do like Formula Continental and stuff like that?
Oh, they do everything there. Absolutely everything there. Anyway, so all right, so our car's at $6,000. JP, it's anybody's guess where this thing will land. I wrote $8,000, but because it has had some bids overnight, I'm going to up my bid to $9,000. It's a no reserve auction. Somebody's going home with this thing today. What do you say?
Yeah, like you said, a good cheap way to get into a race car. What'd you say? $9,000? Yeah, I'll go 8. All right. Who knows? Yeah, I'll just bet the under on this because buying something like this just doesn't seem to make sense to buy it like across the country or something. There's cars like this all over the place that you can buy in your local market. But what do I know? I don't have a race car.
I don't have a race car either. So one of these days.
Yeah.
And when I do, I'll admit I'll probably buy. Like if I'm going to do a dedicated race car, it'll probably be rear wheel drive. S2000 comes to mind. It'd be such a fun car to drive. Wind it up.
We say it's a cliche, but Miata.
S2000 is a Miata with horsepower. So
yeah, but it's twice as much money. So
but twice as much fun. All right, let's go over and visit our really.
Well, why not just get a Ferrari then? Because that'd be 10 times as much fun at 10 times the price. I hate this exercise. All right, let's move on to the next car.
All right, let's go over and visit our friends at P-Car Market.
Okay.
They have on offer a 2006 Porsche 997 base Carrera 6-speed manual car. This car is offered out of Pleasanton, California, which is right across the bridge. In fact, with the view from my house, I could probably see it, which is not true. It's on the other side of the the Caldecott Tunnel. It's 63,000 original miles. And what else can I tell you about it? The Carrera, those Carrera Sport wheels that we like, Carrera Classic wheels, 19s.
No, those are not. Those are
not. What are those?
Those are not the 19s. Those are the 18-inch ones. I can't remember. I think I can't remember what these are called, but they are not the 19-inch wheels.
They are different.
They are different. They're a smaller wheel. Yeah.
Oh, foiled.
Foiled again. Yeah, I mean, that's the base 997 wheel there. That was kind of the standard 18-inch
You're right.
fare.
Okay, so they literally call them 18-inch Carrera wheels with Michelin Pilot Super Sports. So
the 19s are the Carrera Classics, and these are
the
just the Carreras. Yeah.
shape are very similar, but this is smaller diameter. So this car would be way cooler on 19s. But anyway, I digress. 06 is not immune to the IMS bearing. JP, I think you've told me before that this is just a carryover from the second gen 996 motor, right?
Yep. So 3.6 is basically the same thing with some updated doodads.
So right around 325 horsepower, 273 pound-foot of torque. Seems like it should be a very good value for the money, and this car has gotten some love on PCAR market. So 11 bids, and it's already at $30,000. There is just 2 hours to go, and again, this car is in the Bay Area, so it'll be very easily to get this car out of there. An attractive Carrera, probably one of the least expensive ways to get into a modern 911. You could do a lot worse than this car. I think they said that the IMS has been done, but I'll continue to peruse while you speak. Go ahead, take it over.
Yeah, I mean, that is the big thing, right? I mean, so like this car with the rising value of 996. I mean, it used to be that, 996s were held down. A 996 was always going to be a $25,000 tops car because you spend a little bit more and you can get a higher mileage 997. And it seems like now the 996s are kind of, especially the .2s, are coming into favor. And I think that's actually hurting first gen 997s, especially since they do have the same IMS issues as the 996 ones. This car is a fantastic car. I mean, I own a .2 base, and I think, this engine, the 3.6, is just, it's not as powerful as the 3.8, of course, but it's just, I mean, you talked about the S2000. This car is as easy to drive, fast and fun, and have a good time as the S2000. It is basically Porsche's easiest car to just enjoy and have a great time. Does this one have chrono?
It does. Sport Chrono.
Okay, that really helps.
Chrono, Bose, and then they did a gearbox change about 10 years ago, which means it was either right on the last day of the warranty or that this car might have traded hands a second time with like a CPO warranty. There was a gearbox change done by a Porsche dealership because one of the original owners of the car was complaining about a noise and obviously had some sort of warranty that Porsche plumped for a new gearbox. But I see no mention of the IMS done in this car.
Okay. So that's a genuine issue. Look, the C4S 996, I think, is the better looking car, and I used to be ridiculed mercilessly for making that claim, and now it seems like that's what everyone agrees. The only thing is, this car, I think, is the better car because it's a two-wheel drive car. Now, you can modify, a C4S 996 to make it look or to pull the front diff, but that's like next level enthusiast kind of stuff. This car is going to be more fun, lighter, two-wheel drive, just all the 911 things. These cars were absolutely loved by everyone. The 997 body style with its return to the round headlights and all that kind of stuff. These are just people
fantastic.
For good reason. So now it's just really, which car do you want to be kind of like the hipster in the 996? Because you know what? Like my 996 GT3 wannabe is worth this much or more. And so that really becomes a choice. Hipster 996 or go kind of invisible, dare I say, boring 997. And I own both, so I can make that claim without being a jerk. I remember going to Luftkult 3, right? That was kind of like the one that was when it hit critical mass, the first one. Right. It wasn't the first Luftkult, but that was the first one where there was a bunch of people there. And I remember waiting in line, to buy some swag, and, Jerry Seinfeld's 10 feet away from us, and there's some guy standing next to me. And, this was, 4 years ago? And the guy next to me in line, we're chatting it up because we're waiting forever to buy our $50 baseball hat. And I'm like, what car did you bring? And he just like, I have a 997.
Yeah.
I felt so bad for a guy. He felt so dejected because he's, in this world where everyone's talking about air cooled and he just has a lowly 997. I mean, look at him going, you have a 997. That's one of the best cars in the world. What are you sulking about? Cheer up, bro. It's still a Porsche. The engine's still in the right end. And I don't know. I mean, this 997 base Carrera 2006, even though you've got the suspect IMS, whatever, this is the perfect car. Will it bring much more than 30?
Nope.
At 60,000 miles, I doubt it. If it does, then maybe P-Car is starting to bring more money for cars that, like BAT, where cars get overbid on stuff. Usually you got a P-Car to get a deal. If this car brings much over $30,000, well, then, all right. I mean, good on P-Car for doing it.
Yeah. Now, there seems to be a discrepancy on the Carfax that this car had been involved in an accident. It's contested that's a clerical error. But doesn't matter. I don't think that's going to change the value of this car. What we're looking at is
this is not special. It's not collectible. This is a driver.
It's a .1 base Carrera with a stick. This is a desirable car on merit alone of the components. 60,000 miles, new gearbox. It's got sport chrono. It's manual. It's got the sports steering wheel. I mean, this is the car you want. I love it. I would be all over this car if it had anything to do with the suspension or the sports seats, but still, just for a starter 911, man, this is an incredible value for the money. So, JP, I think this car out of Pleasanton, California, still has a chance to bring $35,000. Where are you going to go?
I'm going to bash on P-Car Market's user interface a little bit because this thing just drives me nuts. I'm trying to show you guys a full screen version of the video that they have served from YouTube, but they've disallowed full screen because they want you to stay on the dang platform. Whereas the other platforms, if you have a video, you can go full screen, or you could go to YouTube or Vimeo or wherever the video is served and then come back. But this is just...
They're like a jealous girlfriend, JP. They don't want you to leave the house.
This is like, internet 1997 style. You don't want to leave, get them to leave your platform because there's no way they could have two tabs open. It's like, come on, guys.
If the thing is,
2020, guys.
If you leave P-Car Market to look at a Porsche video on YouTube, then you'll start to see bid nerds, and you'll go down a rabbit hole of bid nerd videos, and you'll forget to buy the car before the close of auction.
Where do we think this thing's going to land? 30,000, 2 hours ago.
I'm going to say $35,000, JP. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think that's fair. How many bids has there been on this thing?
11.
Do you think it's going to sell at that? Or do you
think, absolutely. Absolutely. With the gearbox change and a discrepancy on the Carfax, they'll be lucky to get that.
Hold on. My question isn't about whether or not it's worth that or whether or not it should sell at that. The question is whether or not the person set the reserve.
I think if you're the owner, you have to take it for what it is. This is not a perfect example, and that's the case. The other thing that's interesting though, when you talk about is 35 too high, it doesn't look like this car has gotten any bids overnight or this morning, which is interesting.
35 puts you right in the same era 997S. Maybe same miles, maybe a few more miles. And I mean, that's a no-brainer. You get an S. The S is so much more power. This car to me is a $28,000 car. Sitting at $30,000. Good job, P-Car Market, for bringing the owner more money than this car is worth, because it's not worth more than 30. I'm gonna bid 31 just to be under you, but I kind of think it's not getting another bid. I think it's gonna stall here.
It might be the case. We'll see.
Don't know. Beautiful car, wonderful car, love it.
All right,
drive it.
Our last car of the day, JP, and I've been teasing this car all week.
Yes, we have.
And the main reason is, like, when I picked it on Saturday or Sunday or whatever and put it in my file, I want this car. I am a huge fan of the turbo and the S2 bumpers. I don't like these bumpers because the other version is so freaking attractive. But as I take a closer look at what a 944S, it's still the same 2.5 liter double overhead cam inline 4, but with 16 valves. This thing makes a normally aspirated 190 horsepower and 170 pound-foot of torque. So out of Lake Forest, California, which I had to look up, is way down in Southern California. It's like go down to Costa Mesa and go southeast, and that takes you into this little tiny town of Lake Forest. Our car has just 53,000 original miles, and by all account is in really nice condition. You and I are not a big fan of light colored interiors, especially on Porsches, but this sort of stone gray has a black dashboard and black door tops with these beautiful beige seats and beige door cards. I would totally rock this car. I love it. It also has this sort of iconic 15-inch phone dials. I prefer I think they're called, JP, are they called D9s or D90s, the 16-inch wheels?
Yeah.
Yeah, I prefer those. But this car is just super iconic and super pretty from a certain era. Again, in high school, I was pining over 944s, and I really want to own one. And this would be a great candidate. What has been interesting to me is to watch these two auctions go down the road between the Alpha GT V6 and this Porsche 944S. There's, base 944s have come up. 944 turbos in good condition are starting to go through the roof. And here's this little niche, like they only made it for 1 or 2 years, is this 944S, which has arguably one of the better normally aspirated versions of this car. This would still be fun, spirited drive. You could keep up with all of your friends in this car because it's not a slouch. And yet here's our car with 3 hours to go, sitting at just $15,250. Is this car even going to break 20 grand where the Alpha made almost 40? It doesn't make any sense to me. JP, what am I missing about this car? Why is it unloved?
I think you're right that the bumpers are definitely having something to do with that, but I think there's a weird shift going on. I'm trying to find a picture. Our good friend Lane over at Driving While Awesome, DWA, he has one of these where he put a Euro front bumper on it, and it basically shaves the rubber off the front of the thing,
right.
And then brings the, I don't know what you would call it. Call it an impact bumper, but basically makes it. I'm going to pull the. Sorry, I can't find a picture of his car. But you've got these rubber bumperettes, so it removes the bumperettes. It makes this part flat, and it kind of makes it almost flush with the edge of the front of the hood there, and it just cleans up the front end so well. And then he also added. So I don't know if you guys could see the cursor. This portion in front of the hood, in between the pop-up headlights. If you look at an old, a 924 Carrera GT, the turbos, they have the 5 little vent holes right here. Back at the Emery campout, what was that, 2-3 years ago?
4 years ago.
Yeah, 4 years ago. Bradley Brownell dug through a bunch of old parts and he found a beat up one, and he put it in the back seat of his 912 and drove it all the way back to California to give to Lane, and Lane cleaned it up and put it on the car too. And so it's just it's so good. It's so good. Yes, the 16 valve engine is really it's just musical, magical, all the superlatives that you can come up with. The thing is, they're not as reliable as the solid 8 valve head that is just, you could basically pour sand in that head. They do require rebuilds, but don't fret. It's not the end of the world. It's not like rebuilding a 911 engine. You're gonna have a head gasket leak, or the valves are gonna, you're gonna need a valve grind at some point. But again, it's not that big a deal. Don't worry about it. It's a
$20,000 to $23,000. That Alpha is going to be, if you drive that Alpha the same way you would obviously drive this Porsche, you will break that Alpha in half.
It's true.
They're not bulletproof cars by any stretch. Most people don't know how to drive a stick and ruin second gear in an Alpha even worse than they do on a 915 gearbox and a 911. It's just, and this car is, almost 40% less expensive than the GTV6 and arguably just as clean. It's really weird to me that this is not a more valuable car on this platform. It's crazy. It's in Southern California and it looks brand new.
I'm trying to find pictures of the engine because it's like it doesn't have the ventilator. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. No, it's definitely the 16 valve engine.
It's the 16 valve head. Now the 3-liter in the S2, Frank Collins, famously of Nine House and then the Classic Tech at Godden Porsche for a long time, said that the 3 liters were problems. I thought that'd be the perfect compromise. Don't get into the complexity of a turbo, get that big normally aspirated motor, and you'd still have 200 horsepower and 200 pound-foot of torque, give or take. And he said, Michael, the S2s are just, they're problem children. He goes, they're not good cars. He said, either get a basic 944 or a turbo and stay away from the 3-liter, which I thought was very interesting advice because, of course, he's completely unbiased.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, the newer ones have the glass line cylinders, and those can require complete engine rebuilds. Like in the 968s, those can get you in real trouble. The 16 valve head in this version just had head problems, and again, it's not I mean, like you said about the Alpha, you'll break that Alpha. You drive this thing and you wind up having a head issue. Well, you rebuild the head, and you're still going to be less money in this car than you would have in that Alpha, and have a much more reliable car. Don't get me wrong, you get 200,000 miles out of these, no problem.
Yeah, JP, I want a 944 really bad, and I want to play with it. I want to make wheels and exhaust and suspension. I want to do the whole thing. And this, even though this has a light interior, I still think I can make a really fun sporty car out of it. And I think I would drive I talk about an overachiever. Imagine sub 200 horsepower. Yeah. This car, I would have a blast. I can't wait to own one. So I would be all over this. I think this car should bring 25, and yet I don't think it's going to bring 25. My bid, JP, is $23,000, which is crazy, but that's kind of all the money for this thing. And again, it's sitting at, look at this, 15,000. I mean, it has had some bids. There's some action on it. 24 bids, I think. Yeah, 24 bids, 15,000. What's your number, JP?
How much time we got?
A couple hours.
So, I mean, to get
3 hours.
to
3 hours.
3 hours, that's a long way to go on BAT. And what do we say about Porsches on BAT? It's always the last 10 minutes. Yeah. I could see, it would not shock me. It would not shock me to see this car double in the last 3 hours. Will it get to 30? Pretty unlikely. 25, I think, is the number. I'm going to go. I think this is going to find another $10,000. I think this 30. Thing easily goes over 20. And if it doesn't, that is a steal. And we don't see steals very often on BAT.
Here's the thing. If it hits your number or goes above, then I'll be like, well, I couldn't really afford it. But if it hits my number or goes below, I am going to cry myself to sleep tonight that I couldn't, I wasn't in a position to snatch this one up, because I think that's probably a cool little niche model of the 944 that I would have loved to own. And good luck to the seller and to the potential buyer. Hope it hits reserve and finds a new home. It's a beautiful car. And
gets driven. This car has low enough miles that someone could be like, oh, I don't want to drive it. Drive the hell out of this car.
Oh, within an inch of its life.
Yeah. This would be the great, just all around drive it. Again, I'll talk about Lane's car again. He's got a, his is the old dash. He's got the 16 candles dash. Yeah. Where, the Jake dash. But he's got the prototypo in there, and with the perfect balance of that car. And Lane, like you, was just an absolutely fantastic driver. I've been in the car with him, and I remember riding with him. They took me on a personal tour on some of their back roads when we came to visit filming Porsche Road Trip. Thanks again, Lane. That was that was such a great time. Wish I could remember the name of the roads. I'll have to go back and watch the podcast. But
you have to watch your own film.
Watch the old damn film just to remember where the hell we were. I got so sick. Brian got me so sick in his BMW. That's a whole other story. But riding around with Lane in his 944 just reminded me, and I've had so many 944s, but it's been a while. And he just reminded me, it's like, God, these cars are so good when they're right. And because he was just ripping on the back roads. There were cars with 3 times the power, and as long as there's twisty roads, you're not getting away. It's one of the best balanced cars of all time. Porsche really awesome. Knocked it out of the park. This car has been an undervalued car forever. And like you said, the 16 valve is kind of a rare bird, and it combines kind of the subtle design of the older one that's kind of subdued, and it's not as flashy as the turbo and the S2. So yeah, dig it.
Yeah.
All right.
Silver. There's essentially, JP. When I get off my wallet for one, it's going to be a Silver Rose. There's a Silver Rose in my future, and then I'm going to mod that car and fucking shock the world. That car will be fast.
Look for us next week. Our good friend Bradley Brownell, the respected journalist from Jalopnik and Radwood founder. He is going to be coming and talking to us about Rad for Sale. That will be the newest auction, enthusiast auction site that's popping up on March 1st. A little birdie told me, Mr. Deeb, that the car you describe may be available soon.
Oh snap! That's awesome, man.
So turn over the cushions on your couch and see if you can find some spare change. You might want to do some hand jobs for crack or something. Whatever you got to do.
gonna call everybody that owes me $5 and save up some money and buy a new car.
Yeah.
Listen, that's awesome that they're gonna come on and kind of spew a little bit about their new auction platform. We invite everybody who has an auction platform to come on the show and talk about it because we love it. This is clearly what we do, even when we're not on the air. We spend hours in front of the computer mulling over all these incredible enthusiast cars that are coming to market and reaching a national audience. This is a blast. So you're all welcome.
If you work for Bring a Trailer, if you work for Cars and Biz, if you work for P-Car Market, if you work for Radwood, we want you as a third nerd. You know how to reach us. Let's get you on here and let's have a chat about the most interesting cars of the day on Cars and Biz, Bring a Trailer, and all the other exciting automotive enthusiast auction websites. This has been a Friday edition. We had a great week with you guys. Thank you to Paul from Auto Kennel for hanging out with us on Wednesday, and the whole crew, Rochelle, Esther, Patootie, Antonio, Lee. You guys all help us make this happen, and we really appreciate everything you guys do. Check out Guys Customs on the Instagram. They make these awesome bracelets. We're going to be talking about them a lot more next week as well. They're coming back with a sponsorship, and let's get this going. We'll see you next week, guys. Michael D, anything you want to say before we close out for the weekend?
You're having a great week. Even if I were to wash it today and get all 5 wins, I still think you win the week because you've been kicking me all week long. But just hang on. Let's see if I don't have a strong finish to kick your ass today.
All right. No one has swept a day this week, and I think I got one Yahtzee. But
you almost did. We had a draw and 4 wins with all the Yahtzee. I mean, that was killed it on Tuesday. All right, man. Good show. Good week.
See you guys Monday.